Park it. Breathe. We're starting. Because Papoose just got clocked ringside next to Claressa Shields, and the song Crawling Under that moment, fam, that song belongs to Remy Ma. So before anybody tries to spin this into a coincidence, let's run it back frame by frame, name by name, because every detail on that footage is telling on itself, and the people who posted it knew exactly what they were doing. Here's the cast on the floor. Papoose, Claressa Shields, Remy Ma, Fat Joe by Feature, Salita Promotions by The Upload, Win Records by the Bedazzled merch, and the New York Knicks, yes, the Knicks, because the timing of Pap's reappearance lines up so neatly with that championship moment that you almost have to laugh. One night the city is celebrating, and the very next news cycle, the man who's been ghost for weeks materializes ringside in Atlanta wearing his quietest face. Hang with me because the chronology matters. The chronology is going to do half the work in this video. The setup is simple. There was a ringside moment involving Claressa Shields, the most decorated boxer this country has produced in a generation. Cameras were rolling. Ruben, connected to Salita Promotions and the Win Records front, walked in first. Papoose, the husband of Remy Ma, hung a half step behind. And in the background, audible to anybody paying attention before the copyright filters got involved, you can hear it. The hook, the cadence, the unmistakable percussion of All the Way Up. Fat Joe and Remy Ma. Released in 2016. A track Remy Ma's verse arguably carries. A track that, and this is the part nobody can talk their way out of, belongs in the catalog associated with Papoose's wife. So let's pull this apart. Why that song? In a building full of music. In a sport with 1,000 walk-in anthems. In a promotional operation that supposedly has a record label attached to it, Win Records sitting right there, eligible to push their own catalog. With every option in the world available, the song that lands under Papoose's ringside appearance just happens to be the one most identified with his wife. That is not a coincidence. That is a choice. And once you accept that it was a choice, the question shifts from what happened to who picked it and why. Now here's the thing. I'm not telling you anything you didn't already feel watching the clip. The room felt it. The internet felt it. The comments came in within minutes. One person wrote that Pap didn't look happy to be there. Another said he looked unbothered behind the shades. A third one, and this is the one that should be framed on a wall, said, and I'm quoting, "So y'all used your wife's music for the walk-in. If y'all don't know whose song that is, just say that." The whole comment section turned into a courtroom. Side-eye emojis. Microphone emojis. The receipts section moves faster than the headline does. And every time the comment section moves faster than the headline, you know the headline isn't telling you the truth. And then comes the part that nobody seems willing to address directly, so I'll address it. What exactly is Win Records? Look at the operation. Look at the bedazzled tees. Look at the ringside placements. Look at the photo ops. Now, and this is where it gets uncomfortable, look at the actual music releases. The albums. The concert dates. The festival bookings. The chart performance. The promotional rollout for any new artist on the alleged roster. Where is it? Because the math is not matching. A real record label releases records. A real record label books venues. A real record label promotes catalog. What this operation seems to do, from where the receipts are sitting, is sponsor appearances and decorate shirts. That is not a label. That is a costume. And it's wearing a label on the tag to confuse you. Hang with me because here's the cleaner version of the question. Is Win Records a record label? Or is Win Records a branding vehicle attached to a boxing promotion ecosystem with Ruben and Papoose at the front of it? Because if it's the second one, and increasingly it looks like the second one, then every appearance Papoose makes ringside isn't a music industry moment, it's a positioning moment, and the music playing in the background is borrowed equity from the one person in this constellation who actually has a verifiable hip-hop catalog, Remy Ma. That is the read. The whole operation appears to be running on Remy Ma's gravitational pull, while she herself is nowhere near the building. Let that sit for a second. Let that sit for 2 seconds. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Wait for it because we have to talk about Papoose's body language too. Cameras on him in the ringside footage tell a story he probably didn't intend to broadcast. Shoulders set wrong. Eyes behind the shades. A reluctance that reads even through compression. Ruben walks ahead. Papoose hangs back. The vibe, and I'm not the only person who clocked this, was Ruben, you handle that first. And Claressa Shields, to her credit, kept her composure, greeted everyone, ran the room the way an Olympic gold medalist runs a room. Remy Ma, and here's where the chess move shows up, stayed seated. Didn't get up. Didn't perform a reunion. Didn't perform a fight. She greeted from her chair. She let the room come to her. That is not awkwardness. That is hierarchy. Let me read her by her footprint. Because Remy Ma's silence in moments like this is a strategy that has carried her for 10 years. While the people around her are out there manufacturing optics, she keeps moving on her own track. She didn't post a reaction. She didn't quote tweet the clip. She didn't do an interview. She let the catalog do the talking because her catalog was talking literally in the background of her husband's ringside appearance with another woman. You cannot script that. You can only allow it. And once you allow it, the question becomes whose hand is on the playlist button and what exactly were they trying to broadcast? Because somebody made that pic. Somebody clicked that file. And whoever clicked that file either didn't think about it for half a second or thought about it for a week. Neither of those answers is good for the people in the frame. Drop your read in the comments because that's where the conversation gets honest. Was the song choice a tribute? A taunt? A pressure test? A subtle reminder of who built the brand the husband is currently borrowing? Or, and this is the version a lot of people are floating, was it the kind of move you make when the marriage and the business are no longer the same thing, and the music team picked the track without asking the room? Each version explains the body language differently. None of them are flattering. And every single one of them puts Remy Ma at the center of a frame she never asked to be in. Hold up, because we have to widen the lens. This is not the first time Remy Ma's musical fingerprint has shown up around Claressa Shields' promotional material. Earlier this year, during the build-up to the Shields vs. Frank Cruz DAZN fight card, music associated with Remy Ma and Fat Joe was reportedly threaded into promotional content as well. That's not a one-time accident. That's a pattern. And once you have a pattern, you don't have a coincidence anymore. You have a decision someone keeps making. A decision that keeps benefiting the same handful of people. A decision that keeps borrowing the same woman's cultural weight without crediting her in the room. So who keeps making it? Salita Promotions posted the footage. They knew the room. They knew the marriage. They knew the catalog. They knew the optics. They posted it anyway. Either they are the most asleep at the wheel promotional operation in combat sports, which, given the production budget, I do not believe, or they posted it knowing exactly what the comments would do. Engagement is engagement. Drama is reach. And every account in this constellation benefits from a viral clip, except arguably the one whose music was used to score it. That is the conversation. That is the read. That is why the comments section turned into a battlefield within an hour of the upload. And that is why this clip is going to keep cycling through the algorithm for the rest of the week, whether the principals address it or not. Let's pull on one more thread, because we cannot do this video justice without addressing it. Where has Papoose been? The man missed the Baddies auditions in Atlanta yesterday, a moment he's been visibly associated with as a judge presence. He's been off camera for stretches that nobody can fully account for. And then, like a switch flipped, he reappears ringside in Atlanta, the very window the Knicks championship news cycle is dying down. Some viewers, and I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth, are noting that his appearances seem to cluster around media moments rather than family moments. That's not me saying it. That's the timeline saying it. The timeline is a brutal record keeper. The timeline doesn't care how you spin it. The timeline only cares about which date you showed up on, and which date you didn't. And the receipts on the timeline are getting harder to argue with. He shows up when the cameras are warm. He hangs back when the work is cold. He wears the merch when the lens is on. He goes quiet when it isn't. That is not a husband running a record label. That is a personality running a positioning campaign. And the positioning campaign appears to be financed, in spirit if not in dollars, by his wife's catalog equity. Read the footprint. The footprint is consistent. The footprint never contradicts itself, because the footprint cannot lie. Only the captions can. Now, before anybody jumps into the comments to tell me technically the song is Fat Joe's, yes friend, I know. Fat Joe owns the master. Fat Joe carries the credit. Fat Joe is the named primary artist. But the verse that turned that record into a hook-driven cultural reset is Remy Ma's. The bar everyone quotes is Remy Ma's. The energy that makes the track recognizable in 3 notes is Remy Ma's. So when the song plays under footage of her husband walking up to another woman, you don't get to hide behind the technicality of who owns the publishing. You played her record. Period. Take the L on the optics or come clean about whose stamp you were borrowing. Either path requires more honesty than this branding operation has shown so far. And here's where this story gets bigger than one ringside moment, because the bigger story is about how branding is starting to replace actual artistry in entire corners of the culture. Win Records is not the first operation to do this. It's just the most visible one this week. There is a whole tier of entertainment companies right now operating as merchant appearance machines with a record label nameplate bolted to the front. The bedazzled shirt is the product. The ringside cameo is the product. The Instagram repost is the product. The actual music, the thing that's supposed to be the point, is somewhere in a folder nobody opens. And the artists nominally signed to operations like this end up watching their label function as a wardrobe department for somebody else's positioning play. That is the part of the story the comments section is screaming about, even when the comments don't quite know how to phrase it. People can feel the inversion. They can feel that the marketing has eaten the art. They can feel that the proximity to a name like Remy Ma is doing more work than the catalog of the label currently parading itself around her name. And friend, that is the entire conversation in one sentence. The proximity is doing the work the music isn't doing. Write it down. Tattoo it on the project. Because that is the receipt that holds up under every microscope you point at this. Wait for it, because there's one more layer that hasn't gotten enough attention. The reactions are not coming from Remy Ma's fan base alone. They are coming from boxing fans. From Claressa Shields supporters. From people who just watched the Knicks moment. From people who haven't paid attention to hip-hop in a decade. From boxing analytics accounts. From hip-hop podcast clip pages. From sports gossip aggregators. From regular timeline scrollers who couldn't name 3 Win Records artists if you put a microphone in their face. That kind of cross-audience reaction is what an algorithm rewards, which is why this clip is going to keep traveling regardless of who tries to scrub it. The platform sees engagement velocity across unrelated tribes and pushes harder. Salita Promotions and Win Records, intentionally or not, just bought themselves a recommendation surge powered by a song they didn't release, sung by a woman who wasn't on the ticket, married to a man who didn't look happy to be there. Read that sentence again, because that sentence is the whole video. Let's call it for what it is. Remy Ma is the gravitational center of this story without ever stepping into the frame. Her name is the topic. Her music is the score. Her catalog is the currency. And her silence is the loudest position in the room. While everybody else is performing, Papoose with his reluctant shades, Ruben with his bedazzled chest plate, Salita with the upload button, Win Records with whatever it actually is, she is sitting still and letting the optics indict themselves. She doesn't have to swing. The optics are swinging for her. That is craft. That is a long game. And that is why every time her name surfaces in these conversations, the conversation gets bigger instead of smaller. Watch how she handles it from here, because the next move she does or does not make is going to tell you everything about the chessboard. So what happens next? Claressa Shields has new fights being announced. She said Wednesday in a recent on-camera moment, weight class undisclosed, opponent undisclosed, venue undisclosed. So the camera cycle is about to reset and Papoose will, by every available pattern, be ringside again. The question becomes whether the next walk-in uses another Remy Ma adjacent record, whether Win Records finally releases an actual project to justify the merch budget, and whether the next ringside body language read tells the same story this one just told. The cameras will tell on everybody. The cameras always do. The cameras don't care about your contract or your caption. The cameras only know what they captured. Two-side conversations are also running in the replies that I want to honor before we close. People started picking apart Claressa Shields' hairstyle in the clip, saying it looked rushed, debating the lighting, debating the angle. I'm going to say this once. She is a fighter. She is a champion. Her job is to win. Her hair is not the conversation. Anybody using her appearance as ammunition in a drama she didn't write into is missing the entire plot. And the second side conversation about whether Papoose's casual outfit signaled something is fine, you can read it however you want, but the outfit is downstream of the song. The song was the message. The fit was the footnote. The fit is what you talk about when you don't want to talk about the song. Let me put the receipts together one more time so nobody in the comments can pretend they missed it. Papoose, an artist whose marketing in 2026 leans heavily on his wife's name recognition, appears ringside next to a woman with whom his name has been linked in rumor cycles for months. The walk-in song is the most identifiable Remy Ma track in modern memory. The merch on the body next to him is for a record label whose actual music output is invisible. The footage gets posted by a promotional company that absolutely knew the connections. And the only person inside this entire frame who looks dignified, undisturbed, and 3 moves ahead is the woman who isn't moving at all. That is not random. That is choreography. The only question is who is the choreographer, and whether they realize the routine ends with the audience walking away convinced that Remy Ma is the only artist in the room. Echo the opening for me. We started with a man getting clocked next to a champion, scored by his wife's record, uploaded by a promotional company that knew exactly what frame they were posting. We end with a portrait of an entire branding ecosystem leaning on borrowed equity, photographed in a city that just finished celebrating something else, watched by an audience that just figured out the trick. That is the read. That is the receipt. That is the reason this clip is not going to die in the algorithm for the rest of the week. And that is why every fight announcement coming out of Salita Promotions for the next 60 days is going to get a closer look than it would have a month ago. Drop your read in the comments. Tell me, Was the song a tribute, a taunt, or a tell? Tell me what you think Win Records actually is. Tell me whether Papoose is running a label, running a brand, or running a positioning campaign. Tell me what Remy Ma's silence sounds like to you, because to me, fam, it sounds like the loudest position anyone in this whole situation has taken in a year. And tell me whether Salita Promotions hits delete on this clip by tomorrow morning or doubles down on the next one. Either move tells the rest of the story. Hang with me on the next one, because the announcement coming Wednesday is going to reshuffle this whole story, and the music chosen for the next walk-in is going to tell us whether anyone in that camp learned anything at all. Until then, keep your eyes on the credits, keep your ears on the playlists, and keep reading the footprints, because the footprints never lie. I'll catch you on the next one. Let me slow it down on one more receipt before we close, because this one matters and most of the channels racing to cover this clip skipped over it. The bedazzled Win Records merch is not a small detail. The bedazzled merch is the entire tell. A real label spends its money on studio time, on engineers, on mastering, on PR cycles, on tour support, on radio campaigns, on visual content rollouts for actual singles. A vanity branding operation spends its money on what you can see in a single photograph. Rhinestones photograph. Logos photograph. Walk-ins photograph. Spotify charts do not photograph. Festival bookings do not photograph. Producer credits do not photograph. So when a company's entire visible budget seems to land on what shows up in a still frame, that company is not selling music. That company is selling a picture of a company that sells music. And that distinction is the difference between Win Records being a label and Win Records being a costume. Now run the test yourself. Pause the next clip that comes out of this camp. Screenshot it. Look at what is in the shot. Logos, merch, faces, cameras, boxing branding, a celebrity proximity. Now ask yourself a single question. Where is the artist? Where is the album cover? Where is the streaming link? Where is the actual product the label is supposed to be selling? You will not find it, because it is not in the frame, because it has not been put in the frame, because there is nothing to put in the frame. That is what makes this whole episode possible to read. Win Records would never have had to borrow Remy Ma's record for a walk-in if Win Records had its own walk-in record. They borrowed because they had to. That is the quiet confession buried inside the noise. And here is the deeper read on Remy Ma that I want every viewer to sit with, because if you walk away from this video with one conclusion, let it be this one. Remy Ma is the only person in this entire story whose value does not depend on the room she is photographed in. She does not need a ringside seat to matter. She does not need a championship moment to attach herself to. She does not need a bedazzled t-shirt to identify herself. Her name does the work. Her catalog does the work. Her decade-long career does the work. Which is exactly why everyone around her keeps trying to borrow her gravity, and exactly why the borrowing keeps becoming the story. The borrowing is always going to become the story when the lender is bigger than the borrower. That is the cleanest one-line read on this whole situation. The lender is bigger than the borrower. Write that down. Quote it. Argue with it in the comments. Because every receipt in this video bends toward that single sentence. The marriage borrowed her. The label borrowed her. The walk-in borrowed her. The promotional company borrowed her. And the only person in the room who didn't borrow her was Claressa Shields, who at least stood on her own championship record. Everybody else in that frame was running on Remy's electricity. So when she sits silent in her chair, she is not being awkward. She is being the wall socket. I know that is a heavy frame, so let me earn it by pointing out the obvious counterarguments before the comment section types them. Counterargument 1. Maybe Pap is just supporting his friend Claressa Shields and the song was an accident. Counterargument 2. Maybe Win Records is in a building phase and the music will follow the branding. Counterargument 3. Maybe Remy Ma was cool with all of it and the silence is just a tired woman at the end of a long day. All three are technically possible. All three deserve oxygen. But all three rely on the same thing. They ask you to ignore the pattern, the timing, the cross-clip evidence, and the consistent body language. Once you have to ignore 4 data points to believe a story, you are not believing a story. You are coping with one. And the audience watching this clip is not in the mood to cope with anyone's brand strategy anymore. So let's bring it home. Papoose got clocked ringside with Claressa Shields. The song was Remy Ma's by feature and by cultural ownership. The merch was Win Records by costume and not by catalog. The poster was Salita Promotions knowingly. The silence was Remy Ma's by design. The audience was every demographic on the internet by algorithm. And the only person who walked out of that frame with their dignity louder than they entered it was the woman who never got up from her chair. That is the entire breakdown. That is every receipt. That is every read. And that is why this clip is going to keep traveling.